Oh, hello there, dear friend. What's going on? And welcome on back to Football Therapy with me, your host, Jan. As always, mate, I do hope you're doing well. I feel like I need to refresh those Chelsea shirts in the background. I hope you're doing well, mate. I really do hope that. I'm still ill. That's right, I'm on the sickness train. I've got the Christmas lurgy, as we call it over here in the kingdom. Slightly feel a little bit more revitalised, slowly getting better. A Chelsea equaliser late doors and probably generally quite a good performance from McFarlane's Chelsea at the Etihad yesterday. Certainly juiced me up a little bit. But we're still all over the gaff as a club, of course. Lots of certainly very upset Chelsea fans, understandably, with this ownership that's yet to settle, shall we say. A lot of people are very frustrated with the imminent arrival of Liam Rosenia, of course, Blueco's boy from Strasbourg. Personally, the more I learn about Rosenia, the more I have a great deal of respect for the man, but my position remains the same. I think the job's coming far too soon for him, but I will support him, of course, regardless, because that's what you do as a football fan, isn't it? You support the gaffer. Hopefully this sort of group of Chelsea players can continue to grow and develop together. We're going to get into it today, guys. There's an article on The Athletic by Simon Johnson. Only results will win the doubt is over of Liam Rosenia, of which there are many doubters. But I do welcome you back, gang. I'm so pleased to have you here with me. Like I said, I'm still a bit sick, so I might sound not 100% clear totally all the time in this content, but here we are. If you are on YouTube, thank you so much for joining me and thank you for dropping a like on the video and subscribing if you're new. And you might not even be new, but you're just yet to subscribe. And now's the time, guys. Also, of course, if you search Football Therapy Podcast on your podcast apps, you can follow me there. And if you are on Spotify, you can watch the video and also give me a 5-star rating. That would be very nice. All right, mate. So, yes, we should really it was a good feeling yesterday. Sure, you've seen the scenes of, Callum McFarlane at the end saying really nice stuff about the squad of players. Captain Reece James, ensuring he goes over to the away fans. The pictures of Enzo Fernandez in the away crowd at the Etihad, getting kissed by that Chelsea fan. It was lovely scenes, really. I mean, that's what it's all about, football and moments. But, underneath that, there's loads of uncertainty, unhappy people. The sort of blue co out movement certainly percolating again on Chelsea FC social media accounts. If you look at the comment section and replies to all their posts, there's a lot of Egbali out, blue co out. Seemingly, Todd Bowley's he's seemed to be doing all right out of this. It's sort of clear. Blue co is obviously the main target, but clearly catching the main flack, and more so Egbali. He's sort of being represented by many as this sort of figure that's a bit of an egomaniac trying to run the club in a way, but in an inexperienced way that perhaps isn't going to pay dividends and results on the pitch, and maybe only in money. But saying that, I'm not sure they're in a position where they're making money out of Chelsea yet. They're just trying to set up a system. How I feel is pretty I'm trying to be philosophical about it. I just want Chelsea to win football matches. I want moments like yesterday at the Etihad, more of those. I want to see young players get better and do better. I want to see Cole Palmer return to form. I want to see Liam Delap show that he can be a good centre forward and maybe a little bit less of the thuggery that he's got in him. I want to see Estevao develop into a Premier League star. I want to see Santos get more minutes, which he probably will under Rosenia. I just want to see development, and see, because regardless of your position on the manager, the sporting directors, the ownership, fortunately, I believe that this team will just get better purely by its age profile. So that's a positive in the midst of uncertainty. But of course, I respect everyone's position on this, because it's been tough, man, as a Chelsea fan, for years. I know we've had little moments. It's very interesting to hear that lots of people are really happy to see Moresca leave, way more than I thought. There's of course been some people speculating that indeed some players, as much as he had many allies, there's a few players that are quite pleased to see him leave. Matt Davis-Adams, host of the Straight Out of Cobham podcast, and does some stuff on The Athletic posting. He spoke about how both Leicester and Chelsea fans, how he's said the majority of both fan bases won't miss him, which I think might be a little bit presumptuous with Chelsea. I think a lot of Chelsea fans will miss him, but he didn't say goodbye to any of the players. He was talking to these other clubs, and I'm not going to flip-flop. I think Moresca's a better manager than Rosenia, but it does sound like it was an untenable relationship. And I think perhaps all the fan unrest isn't just about sacking Moresca. This is just the latest, thing in a sea of mess. Whether it's the huge bloated squall under Potter, the appointment of Potter, the interim Lampard stuff, the Pochettino suicide ball defense. And actually, if you remember, there was great unrest and upset fans for all the hiring of Moresca because he seemed so inexperienced, which of course we're seeing again with Liam Rosenior, who probably has a little bit more experience than Moresca in terms of managing in a top 5 league and managing in Europe. But we're going to get into it, man. I just need to start the video sort of doing a temp check because, of course, we all got terribly excited with that Fernandez equaliser and that nice moment for, the squad showing they're still together after this turbulence. And what happens next, which leads me to this article. For those of you watching video, we'll see on Spotify and YouTube, Chelsea owners know what to expect by hiring from within, but only results will win the doubters over. Well, let's have a look, shall we? Of course, I will do a video on tactically how I expect us to set up under Rosenia and who's going to play. Of course, Andre Santos is a big one. Yeah, and maybe Hato will see more and a little bit more rest for Cucurella, who's dropped form a little bit before his injury. Very intriguing, actually. But Johnson writes the following: it took another Enzo to remind everyone connected to the fortunes of Chelsea that things are not that bleak, no matter who is in the dugout. Fernandez's tap-in from close range to secure a well-deserved, albeit unexpected, point at Man City is just the medicine the club required after a very awkward few days. Indeed, it was the first game Chelsea had played since parting company with the head coach Moresca, January the 1st. His likely successor, of course, Rosenia, has arrived in London to officially hold talks over succeeding the Italian, albeit his current employer, Strasbourg, who are owned by the same parent company, Bluecomb, that calls the shots at Stamford Bridge, will need to find a new man themselves before anything is finalised. Send over McFarlane, surely, after his one game in charge, out-coaching Pep in his own backyard. And I say out-coaching because we had the dominant stats. Fun. By all accounts, it is Rosenia, by the way, guys. He's doing media and stuff, and it's done. It's I know it sounds sorry, I'm so ill still, so I might be clearing my throat a bit. The way Johnson writes this is still relatively speculative, but everyone understands it's him, basically. The plan is to resolve Strasbourg's predicament by Tuesday, which at time of recording is tomorrow at the very latest. Sources speaking anonymously to protect relationships, confirming that Monday, today, has been earmarked as a final decision between the 3 candidates. It means Rosenia's first game could be Wednesday, his former club Fulham. Wow, lovely bit of synergy and narrative making full circle there, right, guys? He was a player, of course, between 2003 and 2007. Reaction to his impending promotion in the football pyramid has attracted a lot of criticism from Chelsea fans and pundits. By the way, it's also attracted a lot of praise from people who know Liam, who experienced him. Many of you would have seen that Wayne Rooney clip praising him. I've listened to Seb Hutchison and some other people in football explain how he's such an impressive guy and he's a really good coach, up-and-coming coach. And he won't be a yes man. He might be a yes man in terms of knowing his employers and will be honest with them. But he's not a Graham Potter. He's not like a wet wipe. No offense to Graham Potter. But again, just because I think he's an exceptional person and a good up-and-coming coach, does that mean he deserves the Chelsea Football Club job? I'd argue no, not right now, but at the same time, I'm going to support him, of course. Yes, so his reaction is mixed reaction For a club associated with hiring leading coaches as Mourinho, Ancelotti, Conte and Tuchel during the Abramovich era, the choice of Rosenia emphasises how much things have changed, how dramatically they have changed in the new Bowley Clear Lake Consortium era. Rosenia has never managed in the Premier League, well, neither had Moresca, and has overseen just 150 games for Derby County, Hull City and Strasbourg, again, more than Rosenia, without winning any silverware. Fine, but Moresca won silverware, but he was also managing Leicester, which would have been one of the favourites to win the championship. So we need to just be balanced here. But he's also managed in Europe, which Moresca hasn't managed, and a top 5 league in Europe, which Moresca hadn't managed. Many of you will think, oh, well, the championship, that's about as strong as the French league, but, you're not coming up against PSG, and indeed beating PSG in the case of Rosenia's Strasbourg. He beat PSG, who were, of course, the quadruple winners last season. Chelsea have demonstrated on more than one occasion they do not care what the outside world thinks of how things should be done. Yeah. The Todd Bowley Clear Lake Consortium have shown with their extraordinary trading in the transfer market over the past 3.5 years and a commitment to long contracts despite the scrutiny. Yeah, they sort of see themselves as disruptors, don't they? Rightly or wrongly. I mean, they're disrupting a lot of stuff, but whether that's positively or not, I'd say the jury's still out. There's been hits in terms of transfers, there's certainly been misses, and there's been weird decisions along the way. And I think their biggest undeniable failure is just for having such a young team is offering them no security, stability, and continuity. And that's the most damaging thing you can do for young players, and they've just constantly pulling the rug underneath them. Even if you think it was untenable with Moresca, even if you think, yeah, they probably should have parted ways with Pochettino, even if you think, okay, well, Potters just doesn't have the minerals to be a Chelsea manager, all of it, it's still up to them to make sure these mistakes don't constantly happen, of which they are constantly happening. Rosenia's likely appointment is attracting more pessimistic forecasts. To suggest the reaction from the fan base is underwhelming is an understatement. 2. Protests against the hierarchy in the away end were at minimum at the Etihad Stadium, but Abramovich's name was sung on several occasions. Yeah, I said before, like, Abramovich's name is being sung without getting into geopolitical ramifications or whatever. I think, personally, my opinion is, it's more of a it could be a protest against the current ownership, but it's also maybe like a reminder, a thank you, a vocal noise to a man who just loved football, and it was and just sort of reminding the world of an era of what Chelsea are in the modern era, this powerhouse that of course was birthed by Roman Abramovich. I think it's not just a sort of a protest against the current ownership, it's almost like a defiant reminder of who Chelsea are. That's just my perception of it. Obviously fans will sing it for their own reasons, but that's how it sort of, I don't know, that's how it kind of feels, I think. Strasbourg's decision, with obvious heavy influence of Blueco, to hire Rosenia was with his development as a coach in mind. In a similar way that young Chelsea-owned players such as Santos, Penders, Paez, Sarr have worked their trade during loan spells there. I mean, look at Diego Moreira, by the way. He's gone there on a permanent. He's been incredible, really. Also, he hasn't spoken about Petrovic and stuff like here. A pathway to Chelsea, which we made a big profit on Petrovic. A pathway to Chelsea was always a possibility, albeit it's come a lot sooner than anyone would have thought. Yeah. Now, the naysayers won't take much comfort in this, but I think Rosenia was always been earmarked as a Chelsea coach. The way, Derby, Hull, people had come across him, obviously he's done articles for The Guardian, he speaks very well, he's an impressive character. I think they'd always looked at this 41-year-old and been like, yeah, this guy's almost certainly going to succeed Enzo Moresca, probably hoping Moresca does his 5 years, maybe or maybe not Chelsea trigger the +1, but Moresca has a few years at Chelsea, develops does well, and Rosenia is the guy who's just going to come in. It would seem that was always the plan, but not 18 months in, maybe 4 or 5 years in to Moresca's contract. Strasbourg intentionally play the same system as Chelsea, as do the teams in Chelsea's academy. The logic behind it is understandable, as it limits the extent of adaptation period should a player progress to Chelsea's first team. So either from Strasbourg or the academy, they sort of slot in seamlessly. The same can be said for the coaches. So that's the idea. I've said this before, guys. In theory, you won't get a less disruptive managerial appointment than this mid-season. Sorry. Again, super sick. In theory, that's what it is. The many questioning the thinking over Rosenior's expected promotion were given an example of this when McFarlane's role over the last few days. So yeah, McFarlane was hired as the club's under-21 coach last summer, but was only informally introduced to the first team a few days ago after being told he'll be in charge for the Man City game following Moresca's departure. While he knew some of the individuals, McFarlane was already fully up to speed with the style of play, because the under-21s are instructed to play the same tactics during fixtures. I mean, it's risky, it's wild, it's arrogant, it's crazy. It might just be genius. Do you know what I mean? Like, if it works, like, Man United have just sacked Amorim. What are they going to do? Bring in a back free manager, rip it all up and start again? That could be hugely disruptive. I mean, if they bring in Oli Glasner as a back free coach, it could be superb for them. But say they just bring in someone else who wants to play a back four. It could be disastrous. Whereas Chelsea, whether they promote players from the under-21s, whether they literally bring in the under-21s coach McFarlane for a massive away game at the Etihad, everyone knows what they're doing, and it's not a disaster. Liam Rosenior comes in, it's not a disaster. He knows the sporting directors, he knows the owners. Again, totally understand if you've completely had it with them all and you want them all out. I totally sympathise with everyone's position here. But in theory, like, he doesn't have to meet anyone. He should feel enough at home. You know, he should be able to have these emotional conversations with Reece James. He can give a big hug to Andre Santos, who, you know, he was a massive player for him. He's spoken about this season, how they miss him and how they've suffered without him. You know, they're top of the Conference League table, Strasbourg, but they're probably a little bit off it in the league than they would have hoped to have been. Despite being 7th, which isn't crazy. They probably think, you know, with Santos, he was so important for him, and he's getting back now, and he's got a couple of players in there he can use. Like I said, in theory, they're setting themselves up so if they do, you know, if you can't afford yourself the opportunity to have a Pep Guardiola for 10 years, you know, I know he hasn't won anything, but he's done well Mikel Arteta for 7 years or however long he's been there. If you don't feel like, right, we're going to put this guy in for like a decade and just give him loads of signings, if you think actually that's less realistic in 2026 in Premier League football, in the modern landscape of the game, if you think that's so hard to come by and it's risky and you might not find that dude, you know, and you've got Moresca like making demands and falling out with players or whatever, then you set yourself up systemically so you can slot people in. It might work, it might not. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate and highlight, you know, reiterate what's being said here in the in the Athletic, and sort of try and pick the bones out of it, you know? So, yes. While he knew some individuals, like I said, he's been brought in and he had the same tactics McFarlane and it worked. Chelsea could not have faced City in much worse circumstances. Of course, we were about Caicedo, Cucurella, Sanchez, Fofana. You know, we were playing our second choice right back at left back and a teenage centre back at right back. It was and of course, just the stuff off the pitch with Moresca, it was just loads of drama, you know. McFarlane made a point after the game saying how Reece James, Tosin, Fernandes stepped up to help galvanise, because they're, of course, in a leadership group, guys, I understand. McFarlane did not look out of place either, despite his clear inexperience to his counterpart Pep Guardiola. This was due to the fundamentals of the team's playing style being the same as what he does at academy level, the joined up thinking here. Just the stakes were a lot higher. And credit to him, he looks like McFarlane, he looked like he was terrified the whole time. The pre-match press conference, all media, at the end clapping the fans, he looked really scared. But to be fair, I think that's just how he looked, because he seemed pretty chill and he dealt with it really well. Really, really well. Rosenia will be in the same situation, but permanently, should negotiations progress as expected. This is not to say all will be straightforward and success is guaranteed. Well, yeah, obviously not. Nor the many doubting supporters will be won over instantly. But the adaptation period will not be as dramatic as if some alien took over the project instead. For months, Chelsea have been vetting candidates and or coming up with contingency plans if something happened to Moresca. Wow, for months. That's interesting. A succession plan is normal practice. Also, it looked like we were looking at Felipe Luis of Flamengo, of course, who a lot of people spoke about in the Club World Cup, and he's won a lot of trophies with them, but he's just signed a new 5-year deal. Apparently, we did look at him. That would have got dopamine hits for fans. Look, there's a little bit more of this article. Feel free to go read it. It's behind the paywall, so I'll leave it there. But I do want to speak about Rosenia and appointments because people will be upset with it. I think Rosenia will win the squad over quickly because of how he speaks. Obviously, he doesn't speak French very well, and he doesn't speak Spanish, so he won't immediately, have the same connection with Cucurella, Fernandes, and Caicedo as Moresca did. But he is really emotionally intelligent. I think he will be really good with the fans. Dare I say better than Moresca. I know Moresca had his name sung twice in his tenure, 2 games. I think Rosenia will be smart with how he deals with the fans, personally. The proof will be in the pudding, man, if we win or we don't win. If he gets a couple of wins, if you see him hugging Reece James on the touchline and, cheering the away fans after a win, he'll do himself the world of good. Now, I want to end the video here, the content, speaking about how football is a bit different now with the big names. Because obviously Felipe Luis I thought was an interesting one because he would have excited a lot of football hipsters. He played for Chelsea one season. I think he won the Premier League in 2015. I think he was there for that. He's like a cool guy. He looks cool. He's, Brazilian. He's winning trophies out in the Brazilian league. I mean, it's not, you could argue it's a much lower level than European leagues, but there would have been something exciting, and it would have been a sexier appointment because he's also ex-Chelsea or whatever, like Fabregas as well. But just discounting Fabregas because he's a part owner in Como, and I don't think he was ever really an option. But let's just say a manager that's available, that's a superstar name, Zinedine Zidane. He won the Champions League 3 years in a row. He won the 3-peat. That, he's Zizou. Do you know what I mean? I will say now comfortably, Rosenia, I'd much rather Liam Rosenia manage Chelsea than Zinedine Zidane. Which might blow minds, yeah? It might blow people like, how could you say that? This guy who's managing in the Farmers League versus Zidane who won the Champions League. I don't even know how good a coach Zinedine Zidane is. He's a Galactico whisperer. He had a midfield of prime Casemiro, Toni Kroos and Modric playing behind Cristiano Ronaldo and Karim Benzema in their pomp. He was a Galactico whisperer, which is the exact opposite type of manager. Like, even if we had prime Ancelotti right now, like 2010 Ancelotti, I would be worried. Because, maybe not Ancelotti because he's such a good communicator, but just say like Zidane. I don't know how good Zidane is. It's almost a bit like Xavi Hernandez in his sort of short time at Barca. These legends going back to their clubs as managers. Zidane's just waiting for the France job, and his career will be an amazing footballer. Won the 3-peat Champions League, and he'll manage the France national team once Deschamps finally stops. So people would go, "Wow, Chelsea hiring Zidane," holding up a Chelsea shirt, like the dopamine hit in the brain of just seeing Zizou wearing Chelsea tracksuit. You'd be like, wow, my inner FIFA playing child has been completely satisfied here. Do you know what I mean? Whereas in reality, we've got certain profile players. We need them to be communicated and looked after. The Strasbourg were the youngest team in Europe. The second youngest team in Europe was Chelsea. Liam Rosenia makes a lot more sense for this team. Now, what you might say to me is, Jan, that's not what I'm arguing about. We should have a Galactico team so you can bring in a Zizou and it can be 2005 all over again. Fine, I totally concede to that point. You want to buy, 30-year-old superstars. You want Zidane to come in and manage them, and you want them to all respect him because he's Zidane and we win the Champions League. Great, it's fun. I just don't think it's realistic anymore, and I think we need to take a deep breath, look at what football is at the moment. Look at where we are, rightly or wrongly. But there is a lot of good still in terms of the talent available. And think about, who's available. Like, people, there'll be different reasons why people might not want Rosenia. Some might be very unsavoury and unpalatable. But some might just think they'd rather a Glasgow or someone they've seen in the Premier League do something. But these big names, I just don't think it's the same as it used to be. These superstar managers. If you said to me, Jan, who would you rather have managed Chelsea, Xabi Alonso or Rosenia? I'd probably say Xabi Alonso because he's done so well at a high level, and Real Madrid at the moment is really hard to manage. But if it had to end with Moresca, and by all accounts it did, I'm gonna give Rosenia all my backing basically. But I totally understand. I'm not telling people how to support their club or how to feel, because football's a game of opinions. And everyone's entitled to their own. I don't like the disruption. I don't like the chopping and changing. I don't really like the sporting directors. I don't really have any love for Badad Iqbali. I think Todd Bowley had some nice intentions early doors. I like a few things they've done with like the contract security and the incentivized wages. I like some of the things they've done with the scouting. I like Andre Santos, Estevao, Cole Palmer, and I think Malo Gusto was a good signing, and a few others in the mix. I do think we're missing like a big name striker. I think they need to swallow their pride in a couple of things. But it's not, it's not all doom and gloom for Chelsea. We're still in all the competitions, and if Liam Rosenior gets himself a few wins, we could all feel very differently. But let me know your thoughts. It's an open floor. Everybody's welcome. Let me know your thoughts. Please do like and subscribe if you want to support me on the YouTube. Do check out Football Therapy Podcast on all podcast platforms, and follow and 5-star if you want to support me and do a good thing. All right, mate. I hope to see you back here soon. Take care of yourselves.